June 18, 2025, Williamsburg Planning Commission meeting to order. Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bowe?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Tarley?
Here.
Mr. Boswell?
Here.
Mr. Granger? Ms. Liebel? Mr. Phillips?
Here.
All right, thank you. Ms. Liebel is going to be appearing virtually. Is there a motion to permit Ms. Liebel to appear virtually?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I presume, Ms. Liebel, that means you can hear us, and we can certainly hear you. So don't let me forget. Don't let me forget you're there. We have no matters of special privilege today. That gets us to the approval of our minutes from our regular meeting on May 14. Are there any edits to the meeting minutes as submitted? Hearing none, I'll ask if there is a motion to approve the May 14, 2025 minutes as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to our open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone in the room to come and address the commission on matters that are not already on the agenda. If there's anyone who would like to talk about something that we don't have scheduled, now's your time. There will be an opportunity to speak on all the agenda items moving forward. I'm not seeing anyone coming forward, so I will go ahead and close that open forum. We don't have any consent agenda items today. That brings us to our public hearings. I think we're going to have PCR 25-009 and 25-010 presented at the same time. Mr. Weissong, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the Planning Commission. The first item we have on the agenda is PCR 25-009. This is a proposed zoning text amendment that was submitted by the Williamsburg House of Mercy, and their proposal is to amend the single-family dwelling district, known as RS2, to allow for refrigerated food lockers as a specially permitted use. And to give a little bit of context about the RS2 zoning district, the purpose of this district is for single-family residential development, and the district regulations are designed to stabilize and protect the essential characteristics of the neighborhood. Development is limited to relatively low density, and the permitted uses are typically residential in nature. There are certain additional uses that may be permitted currently with a special use permit, but these are typically churches, schools, and daycare centers, which would need to be complementary to the nature of the existing neighborhood. To provide a little bit more context, the RS2 zoning district is prevalent within the city. There are approximately 1,361 parcels in the city zoned for RS2, and as you can see in the map on this presentation, approximately 700 acres of land within the city are zoned RS2, and they are concentrated within neighborhoods throughout the city, such as Indian Springs and Skipwith Farms, to name two examples. That's about 14% of the acreage in the city, zoning-wise. And I point that out because if the city were to amend the zoning district to allow this specially permitted use, it would allow for property owners in those areas to also pursue that application. So this is a broad policy request by the House of Mercy. Staff also looked at the comprehensive plan to determine whether this is consistent with the guidance that's been approved by the citizens through City Council. The RS2 district is implemented by the land use designation of low-density, single-family detached residential. The purpose of this designation is to encourage well-designed and appropriately located neighborhoods and recommends residential uses. In the neighborhoods chapter of the comprehensive plan, the goal for all neighborhoods in the city are to maintain and enhance the quality of the city's residential neighborhoods and encourage the provision of affordable housing. Refrigerated food lockers are not specifically recommended as a use within the comprehensive plan, and staff does not find that they are a typical commercial use that would be complementary to a residential neighborhood. Now, to talk a little bit about what a specially permitted use is, a special use is one that's deemed to have an extra impact on the city and surrounding areas. And so one of the benefits of requiring a special use is that it gives citizens the opportunity for public review and analysis as well as going through the public hearing process. And this helps for open communication and gives more transparency to the process. It also gives the city the opportunity to add SUP conditions to help mitigate some of the impacts that can come with the special use. And as I'll discuss later in the presentation, this use is unique in that it's difficult and the city's unable to mitigate some of the specific impacts. And I'll share more about that in a bit. So to summarize the policy analysis, refrigerated food lockers are not located currently within the RS2 zoning district and are not present within the city. Staff finds the use is generally incompatible with the intent of the district, as well as the uses that are typically found within these neighborhoods. And staff finds the use is generally inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And as a result of that, staff does recommend denial of the zoning text amendment to add refrigerated food lockers to the single-family residential district with a special use permit. And if I may, I can go into the special use permit presentation if you would like me to.
Please do.
Yes, sir. So in conjunction with the request for the zoning text amendment, the Williamsburg House of Mercy has applied for a special use permit for refrigerated food lockers to be located at the House of Mercy in the RS2 zoning district at 10 Harrison Street. And you can see here the imagery of the locker that was approved by the ARB. Moving on, you can see here the purpose, and I know the applicant is here as well to give a more detailed presentation, I believe, on the ins and outs of the use, but essentially it's to install code-secured refrigerated food lockers on the exterior of the property at 10 Harrison Street. This will be facing towards the wooded area on William & Mary's campus. I don't believe in staff's assessment that it will be visible from Richmond Road, or we don't believe it would be highly visible from the adjacent neighborhoods. And the purpose of the lockers, as we understand it, are to serve food insecure people who are working people who might not have access to the House of Mercy resources during typical daytime hours. Here you can see on the map the rectangular parcel with the two shaded buildings is the House of Mercy location. You have the College Terrace neighborhood to the north and the West Williamsburg Heights neighborhood farther adjacent. And then you have the William & Mary campus in green adjacent to the property. So this is a pretty central location in the city, and it is right next to a historic neighborhood. Now, when staff evaluates a special use permit application, we go by the criteria that's established within the zoning ordinance, and some of this has already been covered in the previous presentation, but the first criteria is whether or not the use is in harmony with the comprehensive plan, and as previously presented, staff finds this use is not one that's recommended for neighborhoods or for residential districts and land uses within the city. Staff also evaluates whether the proposed use is in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning district, and as previously presented, staff finds that this is not a use that is typically found in a neighborhood or comports with the design of a single-family neighborhood. Third criteria is for the character of the adjacent properties, and this is an issue that can typically be mitigated by SUP conditions. And one of the challenges with having remote lockers is that they have irregular hours and they have trip generation with vehicles that are not typically anticipated. So unlike a daycare or a school or another use that you might find adjacent to a neighborhood, remote lockers cannot be easily mitigated. Planning staff imposes conditions upon the actual use itself, and we're not able to control when people access these lockers or the vehicle trips that go to them. That's by nature of the use. It's not a reflection on who the applicant is. It's strictly a land use assessment. The fourth criteria is adequately served by essential public services. Staff has no concern here. We find that the existing facility is served well by public facilities, and we don't have concerns about fire, public water and sewer, or impacts on stormwater. It's the same case with preservation of significant features. There's no demolition that we see proposed as part of this use. It's simply the addition of the lockers themselves on the exterior of the facility. And we don't believe it'll have a large scenic impact on the area. And the last criteria that we've covered is the site layout. This proposal already was reviewed by the Architectural Review Board and was approved in terms of the design. That's a separate approval from the use, of course, but the ARB has approved this, so we have no concerns with the site layout. So based on the fact that the first three criteria are not being met and the fact that we don't believe this is an appropriate use within the RS2 district, Planning staff does recommend that the Planning Commission recommend denial of the proposed SUP to the City Council. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I believe the applicant's here tonight as well and may have a presentation available.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Weissong.
Yes, sir.
Questions for Mr. Weissong from the commissioners? Ms. Liebel, I'll start with you so I don't forget.
I don't actually have any questions. I reviewed this rather thoroughly, and as you know, I'm on the ARB. We looked only at the appearance and did it meet our guidelines, and it did do that. And of course, we look at the use of the property in this particular commission.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Weissong from commissioners? Any questions? Mr. Hamilton, you look like you're about to ask one.
I'm wrestling with a good question here. One of your concerns was going back to setting a principle that you could go into any neighborhood with this sort of thing. Is there a way to apply some other rule than the one we're looking at to govern the use of these lockers that you guys have been able to think of?
Candidly, staff reviewed the application that came before us. Do you mean sort of a compromise position in between the two? I'm not sure I follow your question, but
I don't have a compromise position. I guess
Yeah.
I'm asking whether you guys considered one when you evaluated this, or was one even apparent?
I did think through other options for this. I could not think of anything, and my analysis ended up focusing on the actual use that was being proposed. So,
Did the applicant propose any any sort of constraints on when access was possible to these lockers?
my understanding, and I'll let Mr. Jakobowski cover this in his presentation, is that the plan is for the lockers to be digitally secured and not accessed at nighttime. The concern on the city side is that there's not a zoning way for us to actually enforce that as an SUP condition, because we don't have staff that can be out on site after office hours, and the use itself can be accessed independently by the customers or the clientele that use it.
Okay.
Mr. Weissong, is there a definition anywhere of what constitutes a food locker?
No, there's not.
So if I lived in Skipwith Farms, which is RS2, and I wanted to install an ice machine locker type setup, I could do that under this text amendment?
So if you're using a food locker that's just accessory to your house, to answer your question, yes. If this got approved and you lived in Skipwith Farms and you wanted to set up a refrigerated food locker for the public to access, then you would have to come and apply for a special use permit to do that. If you want to have a refrigerated food locker that's just for your own personal use on your property, you can do that now,
I'm
provided
thinking-
it's accessory to
Yeah,
the
what
home.
I'm wondering about is, we're talking about all of RS2, and you made that point, and I'm just trying to think about, because I don't see this type of use being a widespread issue in RS2. I'm thinking, okay, what else might fall under this, this sort of unanticipated consequences or unintended consequence. If this text amendment went through, what else would we be looking at potentially?
Yeah.
I mean, an ice machine, something like that. Anything else that you've thought of that would be a concern?
No, I mean, candidly, I think this use is dealing specifically with lockers for storing food that are to be picked up by people that are off-site. So if someone wanted to do an ice machine for their own personal use, they wouldn't need to get a special use permit. We would have to evaluate, if someone would call our office and say, I'm thinking about doing this ice box, is that permitted? And then we could evaluate their proposal based on the zoning at that point.
I'm just trying to think about anticipating what the scope might be if this text amendment went through.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr.
So under what current zone would something like this simply be standard?
It's not permitted within any zoning district within the city. So it's,
Any kind of zone right now, it's not permitted?
yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
Octavia.
Ms. Griffin.
So you asked about a definition. There's no definition of a food locker, but this would be seen similar to an Amazon storage area where you can pick up or drop off your items that you purchase from Amazon or that you want to return to Amazon. It would be similar to a red box. If you're looking to get a movie and you don't have something that's streaming live, it would be considered the same thing. So this is a specific food locker, but we would consider those types of places where you can drop off at any time, purchase something at any time as a storage container.
Okay, so it's broader than just food. That's the only reason I went to ice. I was just thinking about that. Okay, so that's, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Okay.
I have another question.
Oh,
So then, an item convenience storage locker, is that kind of thing permissible under different zones in the city?
I believe if it's accessory to an existing commercial business that's permitted in the city, that could be allowed, but we'd have to look at the details of what's being proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Phillips, I would just echo, kind of piggyback on what was just said. Currently, there are none of those blockers we currently have in the city, and if someone came in for that, we would, they would not be allowed because they're not allowed in any zoning district at this point.
Thank you.
And if these particular food lockers were inside a structure, would we need a special use permit?
Well, if they're inside the structure, then we would look at the overall use that's permitted within the structure. And so in some circumstances, that would be no issue at all, because if it was a staffed, approved, permitted use within the district, and this is just part of their day-to-day operations, that wouldn't be an issue. I think the real issue here is that it's a separate use that's outside the building, that isn't being manned and has irregular hours.
all right. Are we ready to? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Wysong. We will move now to the open forum. I believe the applicant is here, Mr. Jakobowski. Are you representing?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, we appreciate the opportunity to bring these requests from the Williamsburg House of Mercy to your attention this afternoon. My name is Mark Jakobowski, and I am the consultant in construction and project manager for St. Bede Catholic Church for all of their facilities here. And I'm representing the House of Mercy in this matter. We are in position right now to pull PCR number 2510 from the agenda, which is the special use permit request, because our research could not identify any language in the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, supplementals, revisions, or other recorded documents that addresses and or prohibits the installation and use of refrigerated food storage lockers in the city of Williamsburg. So initially, that was my understanding from the planning department's response, and that's why we filed the special use permit, was obviously that if there was something in the ordinance that we would need a special use permit in this, but in this case we don't, because it's not in the ordinance. And to say that it's not permitted in the city of Williamsburg, I can't find anything in writing anywhere in all the documents that I just related to you that specify that there is a non-permitted use. So moving on. I'm joined by Liz Buckley, the Executive Director of the Williamsburg House of Mercy here, and several others that are gathered here in support of the project that we call the Give and Collect Initiative. Ms. Buckley will speak in greater detail, and we will both be available to answer any questions you may have. I'd like to discuss some points of relevancy with each of you on this. Primarily the difference between homeless and food insecure. In a prior life, I inspected multiple times over decades the VDOT overpasses in the city of Williamsburg for compliance, for structural failures, et cetera. And I was quite aware of where the homeless people are in Williamsburg. And I would always hear, well, we don't have any homeless people in Williamsburg and James City County. And we do. But I can assure you, we do not have homeless people that are going to access services by the House of Mercy. It's very, very far away from where they are found. Food insecure. The definition of food insecurity is lacking reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable and nutritious food. Recently, the Department of Health and Human Services estimated that 60% of the country's population is classified as food insecure. The food storage lockers will not be available 24/7. They will be available during daylight hours. For example, in the summertime, that could go from 7 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. when the sun goes down, and Ms. Buckley will have control over that. In the wintertime, of course, when it gets dark earlier, the food storage locker availability would be cut back to, again, to daylight hours. So this can all be controlled internally at the House of Mercy. And I'm just going to give you an example. We have a letter from the Williamsburg Area Restaurant Association that they are very, very favorable with this program because they're currently throwing away good food to a dumpster that could be going to the House of Mercy and go to feed a family who is food insecure. They would have access through a special code to go and put their food in these food storage lockers. Some can be freezers. These can be amended. They don't all just have to be a refrigerator. Frozen food could go into a freezer compartment, for example. They would have that code to put that in there. So they would drive by, they put the food in, and they leave. The next day, your food insecure folk would have the code from Ms. Buckley's operation to go into their locker and get their food out during daylight hours. We're going to address something else about food insecure people that I've done research on and can speak about. There may be people in this room that have had food insecurities in the past, but I can also say that everybody in this room, we always say this, we're one step away from something abysmal happening to us. Financially, a family failure, something where we find ourselves that we need help. These people are people that choose to pay their mortgages, they choose to pay their rent, they choose to make their car payments. Their credit's not bad at all. They choose to put their children in the baseball program over here at Whisk. And they figure the food out later, because that's how they want to raise their families. These people aren't going to drive by these food storage lockers and hang out. They're going to get over there, they're going to get out of their car, they're going to punch their numbers in, and they're going to haul. They're gone. They just want to come get their food, they want to go. It's embarrassing. Let's face it. Put the shoe on your foot and think, how would you act about it? What would you do with this? You do exactly that. You drive up, you get your food, and you're going to go. So as far as any type of issues or interventions or anything like that, not likely at all. And again, Ms. Buckley will go into more details about that. Some facts. Based on 2021 Map the Meal Gap data, an estimate of over 7,000 residents in our area are food insecure. Over 7,000. The Williamsburg, I said this before, and I hate being redundant, the Williamsburg Area Restaurant Association, I have a letter from them. They are in firm support of this program. They would much prefer to feed people than they would to throw this stuff away. This location is not visible from anywhere on College Terrace, as Thomas pointed out. It's not visible from the College Terrace neighborhood. There is a 1.5 foot indention back basically on the wall of the church on this side that these lockers will fit into. The only way you're going to see them is if you come out of the woods at William and Mary across the street. And then you're going to have to look for them because there are columns and a roof over a sidewalk in the way. Mostly the people that are going to know that these are there are the people that are going to use them. Again, not visible from Zabel Stadium, from the Alumni House, not visible up the street because of the angle that comes in here. The submitted drawings provide that there are security cameras and lighting provided that are manufactured with the unit that comes in. There is a small roof over it, and there, again, you have security and lighting that are here. College Terrace is a dead-end street at Harrison Street, and the unique location of the House of Mercy avails it to patrols from both the City of Williamsburg Police and the William and Mary Police on a regular basis, where they will serve to maintain the current and previously experienced harmony within the surrounding community. The locker unit color will be Benjamin Moore CW, that's Colonial Williamsburg color 70, which is Pelham gray, and it blends in with the gray bricks that make up the Flemish bond masonry of this House of Mercy building that's existing there. And the project, as Thomas also noted, was approved from the ARB back in March of this year. I'm more than happy to field any questions that anybody would happen to have at this time.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
Mr. Jakobowski, I understood you to withdraw PCR 25-010. Have you also withdrawn 25-009?
No.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Right.
What's the capacity, storage capacity of these units in cubic feet?
Okay, I have that. That was submitted as part of the package, but I do have that here. They are 16 inches by 16 inches square. They're 31.5 inches deep. I'm sorry. There are 16 compartments that are 16 by 16 inches square. .2 cubic feet.
Sounds like it compares to 16 dorm refrigerators from my distant past.
A little smaller.
Smaller.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, this isn't, they're not putting a week's worth of food in here, because of course these are perishables. The House of Mercy themselves distributes food during the week. You're probably all familiar, if you drive down Richmond Rowe Wednesday and Thursday, you can see the cars that are out there. You know, so this is dealing strictly with things that are perishable to elevate the food from the non-perishables that are distributed on a regular basis.
How many days a week would it be stocked?
I would estimate 5. Ms. Buckley could probably better answer that. Yeah, the weekend would be a no, because there's nobody there to monitor. And if you're concerned about security, if there's a question from anybody further, gentleman sitting back here behind me in the Hawaiian shirt, his name is Don Jandrup. You may know him. He is a retired City of Williamsburg police officer who is the head of facilities for the House of Mercy. And he's there 5 days a week, sometimes 6.
Ms. Bogue?
My question, I guess, is actually for staff as a follow-up after hearing your statements here. From what you're saying, it sounds like the lockers would not be accessible 24/7, whereas you guys were comparing them to like a Red Box or an Amazon locker that you can access 24/7. So that feels like a disconnected categorization of what we're talking about here, because it sounds like they would not be accessible essentially when there's no staff at the House of Mercy to monitor it. Is that all correct?
Correct.
So I guess I'm not really asking anything, but I'm just kind of pointing out that these are not really, these are kind of apples and oranges, it sounds like to me.
The same issue remains, though, which is that we couldn't put SUP conditions in place that could regulate the comings and goings for the use. So I take your point. They're not exactly the same, but the same concern remains.
Well, the fact that you can't regulate it with your staff doesn't mean we couldn't put it in. And if they mentioned police, going by, and that if they see problems, there could be a violation of the SUP that the police document. Is that correct or not?
Well, I would say that when we look at SUP conditions, our goal is to be able to mitigate the impacts from planning and zoning staff, and city police are part of city staff as well. So there would potentially be an extra strain, but we're looking at it from the planning and zoning perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for that, for clarifying that. Ms.
Mr.
Liebel,
Chairman.
I see your hand in the top of your head. Ms. Liebel, go ahead.
I'd just like to circle back to what we're actually talking about. We're talking about a text amendment to RS2 to allow this use in all RS2 districts, correct?
With a
Is that
special use
correct, Thomas?
Yes.
That is correct.
So I'm afraid we're talking about spot zoning for House of Mercy versus this text amendment. And the text amendment would allow it to be a special use in any RS2 property.
Is that correct? The SUP is just specifically for this.
Yes, and the zoning text amendment has to occur first to allow the SUP. Yes, sir.
So the text amendment would change to allow it as a permitted use with an SUP in anywhere in RS2. And that's 25-009, 25-010, which they have withdrawn, would have granted, if approved, an SUP for this specific use at House of Mercy only.
So my understanding is that in order for them to apply for the SUP, the zoning text amendment has to be approved first.
Right, has to be done
Right.
first, but I'm just following up on what Ms. Liebel, so I have to make sure that I clarify, because we're talking, the RS2, I mean, the 009 applies to all of RS2. 25-010 is the special use permit for this use, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
You got it.
And so they've withdrawn 25-010, so all we're talking about now is just RS2. All this left on our agenda is this an appropriate text amendment for RS2? Is that right, Ms. Griffin?
So
Mr.
my,
Lambert?
I just want to, so we're not wasting the planning commission's time and having to come back. I think the statement about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the statement about withdrawing it is based on perhaps a misunderstanding of how the zoning ordinance is written. It's an inclusive zoning ordinance, so it tells you what you can do. It doesn't tell you what you can't do. So just because it doesn't say you can't currently have refrigerated lockers does not mean that they are allowed. That's why the text amendment is necessary. So if they are withdrawing the SUP application, they're not going to be able to put the food lockers even if the text amendment of the zoning ordinance is approved.
They would have to come back.
Correct.
So if the text amendment is recognized and approved, we would leave the SUP that would apply for the special use permit under this text amendment. Under the current ordinance, there is, as I agree, there's nothing that states that you can or you can't have a food locker. So I can't apply for a special use permit for something that doesn't exist.
You had legal advice on that?
Pardon?
You might want to get some legal advice on that. I'm just recommending. Ms. Liebel, any other questions from you?
My concern again remains, if we approve this text amendment and it becomes part of the ordinance, then how do we remain consistent citywide in all of the RS2 neighborhoods? It sounds like we're spot zoning for a very laudable intent in a specific area, but what's to prevent someone, well, okay, James, in your neighborhood, you're going to put, I don't know, a big deep freeze that you're going to open up to anybody that wants to buy the meat you bought from Omaha Steaks from accessing your property.
Then you'd have to apply and get a special use permit.
Right, my understanding is that I would then have to apply and get a special use permit.
I understand that. And what would be the rationale to say, well, we're not going to let James do it, but we've let this other situation do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. My understanding with staff and council is that that special use permit is on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the property, it depends on the specific use. Right, a permitted use is throughout the zoning district, but it's with a special use permit, which is based on the specific use. It's not really, I don't see that as spot zoning, that's just allowing the city to set conditions and for the property owner to agree to those conditions. Is that
Correct.
understanding correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay,
It would be spot zoning if they were applying to have their property rezoned in order to be able to do this if it were allowed in a different district or
right.
something.
Yeah, that would be
That would
spot
be
zoning.
right.
Yeah, the SUP is necessarily parcel specific, and it's just allowing a use that anybody in the whole zoning district could use with a special use permit.
Right.
Mr. Tarley.
Well, I'm still back to Mr. Lambert's point here, is that if you pull this special use permit request, we're not accomplishing what you want by just changing the zoning or recommending a change to the zoning designation.
No, I agree. The special use permit would follow the approval of the text amendment.
That's why we're here,
Right.
but you pulled it.
We were saying that if there was no ordinance that was addressing the food storage lockers, we can't apply for an SUP under those circumstances.
Which is why there are two cases. Case one is to add refrigerated food lockers. Once that's added, then you apply for a special use permit. That's 010. So if the refrigerated food lockers, so we would have, the planning commission would have two separate votes. One, do we want to add refrigerated food lockers to 21-164? If the answer is yes, then we would go to 010 as to whether your special use permit for adding refrigerated food lockers is approved.
No,
Do I have that
I
right,
agree
Mr.
with you.
Lambert?
Correct, and we're doing them at the same time, so they're kind of
Right.
merging into one. But the first question that the planning commission must answer is whether to amend the text for everything, and then we're focusing on the specifics of the SUP application.
Correct.
But if you pull it, then we have nothing to vote on as to whether the House of Mercy would be permitted.
So that the commission understands, it was provided because we were told that there was an ordinance that would not permit the installation of, that it's not permitted in the city of Williamsburg. So the thought was, well, then, we need to apply for a special use permit if that's the case. And then we found out that there really isn't a specific ordinance that doesn't permit it. As was just explained, well, that was sort of an inference by, because we don't address it, it's kind of fuzzy there. So
Okay,
the special
Mr.
use permit was applied in the event that somebody came back and said, here's the ordinance section, and in order to do this, you need a special use permit.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Good, then we have
Jakobowski.
one on record.
Okay, you have withdrawn 25-010. We have 25-009. Are there any other questions for Mr. Jakobowski from
So
the
at this
commission?
point, under the explanation, since we agree, we would leave PCR 2510 in under 25009. We didn't understand that they were being coupled in together because we were given other information.
Well, but B cannot come unless we approve A.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm with you.
Right.
I agree.
okay. Any other questions?
Chairman Boswell,
Yes.
if I may, Mrs. Bowe asked a question. I was trying to alert you. So the question that you had about the discrepancy between being 24/7 around the clock versus only being during certain hours, if you look in the ARB packet that was provided, there is a letter from the House of Mercy that states when the hours of operations are going to be, and it talks about restaurants ending their days late evening hours and weekends, and that this would be provided to them to be able to provide for bringing their food. And so it was always staff's understanding, based on the information provided to us, that this would be something that happened 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, based on the statements in the letter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jakobowski.
Sure.
I do have a question for Mr. Lambert. You may
Okay.
sit down. Thank you. They withdrew it? Can they unwithdraw it? How does that work? In his presentation, that he formally withdrew it.
If
The way that I heard it was that he said he was prepared to withdraw it.
that's my understanding, he can certainly correct if he
Correct, okay,
wants
good.
to formally withdraw it, but the commission would still have to make a decision on the first, on 09.
Well, I mean, is 010 still standing or not? Is it still there or not?
I don't
opinion on
think
that.
it's been formally withdrawn at this point.
That's all we needed. Okay, Ms. Buckley. And would the clerk run the timer, please?
Good afternoon, Planning Council. I'm grateful for your time that you give to this community, first and foremost, for all your efforts through the Planning Council and the ability for us to have a collaborative dialogue over the needs that we are trying to achieve here. Very briefly, the Williamsburg House of Mercy provides comfort and compassionate human services to our most vulnerable neighbors throughout Greater Williamsburg. 80% of the work that we do are for clients who are coined as ALICE. You might have heard this term. United Way has coined this term. It stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. Basically, they are living right below the poverty level or right above the poverty level, making enough to survive but not thrive. They depend on organizations like the House of Mercy to really be supplemental, and as Mark had pointed out, they're able to pay for things for their children, but then they sacrifice food, and that's when we come into play. Some stats for year to date, we've already served 1,443 unduplicated households through today. That is 4,255 unduplicated individuals. 800 of these households are actually in our zip code of 23185, to give you that perspective. The Outdoor Food Locker Project really targets this ALICE population. We already serve really at staff capacity the work that we're able to do for those experiencing homelessness through our day shelter. This project is not meant to serve the folks who are experiencing homelessness, but really this ALICE population. You drive down Richmond Road, I'm sure a lot, and you see cars really stretched all the way down going towards the Food Line and Marshalls. We're trying to really make food more accessible for when those folks are able to come. A lot of them are taking time out of their lunch hour to come and pick up food. I'm not asking for them to come 24/7, and I'll hit that point in a second. Our current operating hours are from 9:30 to 3:30. This project aims to extend those hours to the front and the back end of the day, really trying to make it more manageable and not out of the scope of what a normal business schedule would be for any business. Most businesses, can operate between 7 and 7 p.m. That's really what we're asking for, again, with daylight savings in consideration for seasonal shifts of those times. It's really a privilege for us to be in the location that we are and with the neighbors that we have on College Terrace, and I do everything really to try to make sure that those neighbors are communicated with on what we're doing at the House of Mercy and try to mitigate any concerns that they have. And to that point, when we shift hours for when food can be picked up, we will always consider our neighbors on College Terrace to be involved in that. To the point of 24/7, that comes more into play with the give portion of this project, which is through the efforts of our restaurants, so that we can start to combat a zero food waste initiative for Williamsburg. They would come to drop off. Now, we all know that restaurants usually close at 10, 11 o'clock at night. Those would be the only people accessing the lockers at that time. It would not be in the middle of in the morning, and really we would try to avoid weekends at all cost. You can imagine that the hardest work in being a nonprofit is saying no to people. If someone really needs food and we're walking out and getting to our cars, we really don't want to have to say no. It would be amazing to just say to them, here's your code, here's exactly what you need, and we're able to fill that need. And again, this is really for that ALICE population that, I can speak from experience. I've been ALICE. I'm sure many of you have too. So I really appreciate the consideration for this project, for all the background work that gets involved with this. I'm appreciative to the ARB as well for their former confirmation. And I just appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Buckley. All right, we still have an open forum. It's an opportunity for anyone to address the commission on either of these two pending applications. I don't have any speaker cards, so whoever gets there first, please state your name and address for the clerk to be able to put in the records in the minutes.
Super, thank you. My name is Ken Blakely. I live at 718 College Terrace. I've lived there for about 5 years now. Just want to say I generally support and approve House of Mercy's mission. They've been there since I've been there, and it has generally worked well under supervision. I specifically do not support the initiative to put refrigerated lockable food lockers out for the access of their clients. There's two components to this program as they propose it. Component number one is for restaurants to come to deposit unused food at any time of the day or night, 24/7. You just heard that. The second component is for clients of House of Mercy to access these refrigerated lockers during times specifically designated by House of Mercy. The gentleman that was representing House of Mercy just a second ago said specifically that they would not be accessible when no one was there to supervise that, but then you just heard Ms. Buckley say the exact opposite. They will be accessible when no one's there to supervise that. I don't support this program or this proposal for specific reasons, not just because I'm generally against it, but specific reasons. The access of those lockers by their clients during hours when they are not supervised will increase trash, will increase vagrancy, and will increase traffic on College Terrace. That's not a theory. I know that for a fact because I saw it happen in 2022 when House of Mercy left out several bins for people to deposit unused food in. People came and deposited food, and then clients came and picked through that food to take what they wanted. Trash came out, birds picked at it, it was a mess. I specifically had to ask House of Mercy to clean that up. So I know that's going to happen because it's happened before. In preparation for this meeting, I canvassed all the neighbors that I had emails for in my neighborhood. There are 22 houses on College Terrace, and I received 11 responses, all of them supporting my position to not support the access for refrigerated food lockers for House of Mercy's clients. That's over 50% of the neighbors on College Terrace do not support that initiative. I also just want to point out that your own staff recommends denial of both requests, both the change in the code and the special use permit. Presumably you're paying your staff for a good reason. They make that recommendation to you. In close, I just want to say I support their mission. It's a good mission. It's clearly a need. As long as it can be supervised, really supervised by real human beings that are really on the spot, as opposed to cameras with somebody that may or may not be behind them, this could be a workable program. As it is right now, I emphatically do not support it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate it. Who else would like to share? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Bill Talley, and I live at 709 College Terrace. I am also one that's in opposition to this, and I'll give you, I want to start out with 3 short sentences, okay? The intent is good. The concept is good. The location is bad, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? Before I get into that, let me review the existing process. And I've heard all of the smoke and mirrors, okay? First of all, as admitted, try going down Richmond Road on a Wednesday morning. Try accessing the driveways in the 600 and 700 block of even-numbered houses. They're blocked because the cars are lined up bumper to bumper for 2 and sometimes 3 blocks. I don't deny that we need these services, but we need to find somewhere that's appropriate to do it. Because if we open this Pandora's box of allowing this type of facility in an RS2 neighborhood, what's to stop it from happening in other RS2 neighborhoods, okay? The last thing is controlling this hours. Well, I've heard these limited hours. I've heard 24/7. But if I can go from past experience, okay, all of these cars that are blocking these driveways, another issue is cars coming from the south, turning onto Dillard Street, and then making an immediate U-turn to try to get in line in the queue and blocking that intersection. Sometimes I'll just turn on Brooks and come in that way and make a U-turn at Dillard and College Terrace because you can't access the road from that way. The other thing is, okay, if we're going to self-police, the sponsoring organization is going to self-police the hours, then where does that leave the city in control of this? It doesn't. And if you look at some of the liberal licenses that are already taken with ringing those bells and not policing the existing cars, then that leaves the question. I thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir. Who else would like to address the commission on these applications? Not seeing anyone else, I'll go ahead and close the open forum and ask commissioners for comments. Ms. Liebel?
My comments remain the same. This is going to be a zoning text change. And first of all, we as the Planning Commission only make a recommendation to council. We don't change ordinances. Only council changes ordinances. So even if we were to vote in favor of it, the applicant could not get his special use permit approved, only recommended for approval in this meeting.
Great, thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Well, I think we've had a very fine and robust conversation about the topic, and we've heard points of view from both sides, and so I've welcomed this, and I'm ready to vote.
I think it's been a really good discussion of all the issues, and I really appreciate all the good work that the House of Mercy is doing. It does seem to me that it presents some challenges to the surrounding neighborhood, and I'm not sure we're in quite the right place in terms of how to execute successfully at the present time.
Thank you. Ms. Bowe, any comments? And not required, just the opportunity.
Thanks. I did just want to point out that, because I saw it in the staff report, there were some citations of criteria where this was not compatible with the comprehensive plan, and I was just rereading that, as I sometimes do, to refamiliarize myself. I thought it was interesting that I could not find any mention of homeless, unhoused, or any kind of adjacent word. No mention of how many unhoused people might be in the city of Williamsburg. I think that's something that I would definitely like to see in the next comprehensive plan. One goal I wanted to point out that I did see in the comprehensive plan that does kind of jive with what's going on here is under the Human Services and Education section, to provide appropriate public support for human service agency facilities and other capital improvements as needed to meet critical health and human service needs, especially for vulnerable populations. I'm not sure if the Williamsburg House of Mercy would qualify as the human service agency facility, but it certainly does seem to fit that to me in plain text. So I'm not sure that the way that that this has been presented is the best way to go about this kind of program, as some members of the community have pointed out. I do think that there is probably some kind of middle ground with the access hours that you guys have proposed. I would love to see a little bit more clarification around that. I think I'm ready to vote at this time, and I think that it would behoove the Williamsburg House of Mercy to consider the comments made here today and to perhaps try again.
Charlie, comments?
Only that, these are difficult because the issue is not the mission of the House of Mercy. I think we all agree that the mission is very commendable and very necessary and very appreciated by our community. This is just a separate issue as it relates to the land use. And I appreciate all the work that you did.
Absolutely, and I agree that we have to focus on the zoning aspect of this is the primary issue, and changing zoning for an entire zoning district is likely to present some issues that we haven't even begun to think of as creative as some of us are with the Omaha Steaks example that Ms. Liebel had. So with that, I'm going to ask, is there a motion? And we're going to vote on these together, unless anyone objects. Is there a motion to recommend denial of PCR 25-009 and to recommend denial of PCR-25010?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
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 Are you asking me? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's hard. Okay, that brings us to PCR 25-011. Ms. Griffin, is that you?
Good afternoon, Chairman Boswell and all members of the Planning Commission. Today, I'm presenting PCR 25011. This is a request for a special use permit from Brian T. Rowe, who is representing D.R. Horton, a nationwide residential construction company, for a special use permit to encroach on slopes in excess of 30% for the future development of Redoubt Ridge at Quarterpath. The property is located at tax map number 559-03-00002. The owner of this property is Quarterpath Williamsburg LLC, and this property is proposed to be 199 single-family detached homes with a clubhouse and a pool. The parcel is approximately 114.6 acres, and it's located at the corner of Redoubt Ridge and extends to Quarterpath Road. I do want to point out that this project, while adjacent to Quarterpath Master Plan, it is not a part of the Quarterpath Master Plan, but it has been looked at, and we have been anticipating that this would come before the Planning Commission at some point. This is a map that shows the encroachments into the 30% slope. It will encroach into the 30% of excess slope in 11 different places. The total encroachment is 1.01 acres. Again, this is 1.01 acres of the 114 acres provided. And in our zoning ordinance, it requires, if there will be any disturbance into a slope that is more than 30%, that it must come before the Planning Commission and City Council for review. And what we're trying to do there is to ensure that there are no adverse environmental impacts to the steep slopes. This is a different map. It's still showing you the slopes that are encroaching. The slopes in the area in red are the 30% slope encroachments. And as you can see, there will be no lots that will have houses on them that will actually be within the 30% encroachment. This is a table that shows all 11 impacts into excess slopes. Again, the total is just 1.01 acres, and here it shows you all of the impacts. All of the impacts are allowed by the zoning ordinance, specifically the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area Ordinance. There are 4 impacts within the steep slopes that will take place in a resource protection area, and all of those encroachments into the resource protection area are for uses that are allowed by exception included in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. So then we get to the special use permit. And as we know, a special use permit is granted for uses that, if not specifically regulated, can have an undue impact and be incompatible with land adjacent to particular zoning districts. And so we look at 6 different criteria. And the first criteria is if the use is compatible with the comprehensive plan. And I do want to state that the use that we're looking at is really the encroachments into the slope. The use of the lot as residential is allowed by right. This property is zoned RS2 conditional. It was rezoned back in the early 2000s, and so this use is of residential uses is allowed. And so we're looking at, is this particular encroachment in harmony with the comprehensive plan? The comprehensive plan land use designation is medium density, single family detached residential. The zoning district, again, is RS2 conditional, and the character of adjacent properties. Again, this is next to the master plan community. In the master plan community, you have several different medical offices, including a hospital. You also have apartments, and you have townhouses. We believe that the encroachments into the slope are required to come before you all with a special use permit. We also know that the actual use of the residential for property is allowed by the comprehensive plan. It's in keeping with the zoning district. The RS2 conditional is based on the proffers that were done with this particular property, and one of those proffers is that there would be the connection of Redoubt Road to Quarterpath Road, which is happening with this particular development. And another of the conditions was that there would be a light at Quarterpath Road and York Street. So if you can imagine where the flats are now, it states that there will be a light. So all of those things will be done with the zoning, with the development plan. What we are looking at is whether we will require a light there or some other traffic calming mitigation, but that is all being planned in the development of the property. The other three criteria are where we have public services, the design, and the impact. And again, we believe that all of the criteria here are going to be met. There is adequate public service to this particular development. The streets you can see here, drainage facilities, fire protection, all of that is happening in Quarterpath at this point. The design, this is not in an ARB district, but still with the development plan, we have to make sure the site is landscaped. There are landscaping requirements in the zoning ordinance. And then we look at impact. Will this have an adverse impact on ecological functions, on scenic or historical importance? And that's then where the slope waiver comes into consideration. So there are three things that we have to consider for a slope waiver request. And these three things have been reviewed by planning staff and also by our city engineer. And the first is that there will be no negative environmental impacts. No encroachment into a resource protection area is permitted except those uses allowed under section 21818. And as stated previously, there are no encroachments into the RPA except 4, and those 4 encroachments are allowed in section 21818. Those are for public roads, and those are for utilities. A mitigation plan. In your packet, you will see a very lengthy mitigation plan that has been provided by the engineer. We have reviewed that mitigation plan over several iterations, and what has been provided will reduce downstream erosion and prevent any increase in water pollution for the project. And so the engineer has approved the mitigation plan that has been provided. And then the last thing is that the plan will regulate stormwater runoff, and that all of the boxes checked there have been approved, and so we are recommending approval of this as far as criteria 6 is concerned. I thought it was also important to provide you just an overview of the master plan. The last time there was a steep slope request was for Kerbor townhouses, and if you've been out there lately, Kerbor townhouses, the 86 units are being built. And so this is at the top here. Let me see if I can do this correctly. There. This is the Redoubt Ridge at Quarterpath. Here is the Kerbor townhomes that is being called the Overlook at Tutter's Neck. Virginia Greens is in place. We also have Greenwood Village that was approved earlier. That has not been built yet, but it was approved. And then you have the Aurora apartments and townhouses. Here you have the medical office, there is the Peninsula Dermatology, and then you have, of course, Riverside Hospital. And so before we were asked, well, how many residential units can be built in Quarterpath? These residential units here, the 199, are not included in the Quarterpath calculation, but for Quarterpath, 147 more units, residential units, can be built, separate from the 199 for the Redoubt Ridge. Staff is recommending approval of the encroachments into the 30% slope or more. Staff recommends approval of the special use permit. Why? Because a mitigation plan submitted has been approved by the city's Stormwater Management Program Administrator to reduce erosion and to prevent any increase in water pollution. A water quality impact assessment has been reviewed. This assessment looks at the replanting that has to take place in riparian buffers, and they are meeting all of those qualifications. And then we have reviewed this plan for erosion and sediment control measures, and we believe that all are in keeping with DEQ requirements and with city requirements. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and the applicant is here to answer questions also.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Ms. Liebel, any questions for Ms. Griffin?
I do not have any, thank you.
Okay, members who are present, questions?
No questions.
I'm good.
It was a very comprehensive summary.
Good, thank you.
A little off topic. Did you say, where was the traffic light you said that they were considering putting in?
The traffic light is at Quarterpath Road and York. Do you want me to go back?
Okay.
Okay.
I understand now.
Okay, I guess no other questions. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. I'll go ahead and open the public forum. If the applicant would like to address us, now would be the time. If not, that's fine. Anyone else that would like to address the commission on this particular application? Now is your time. I'm not seeing anyone else, so I'll go ahead and close the forum and ask, are there comments? Are we ready to vote? I will ask, is there a motion to recommend approval of PCR 25-011? And I believe, Ms. Griffin, there are no staff criteria. It's just approve it as it is, correct?
That's correct. They've
Okay,
met
so-
all the criteria.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion to recommend approval of PCR 25-011?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to agenda item PCR-25-012. Mr. Wysong, you're back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PCR 25-0012 is a special use permit application that the city has received. The applicant is Slick City Action Park, and they have submitted an application for a family entertainment center at the property address 2200 Richmond Road. So just to say a little bit about this application, this is for the adaptive reuse of the existing building that's located there. All recreational activities are going to be located inside the existing building, and this is for a waterless slide action park with indoor recreational activities and a cafe. And this is the location map. You can see Richmond Road and the commercial uses located nearby, with Skipwith Farm being the large residential development located behind the property. There is a fence and a hill that separates the property from the neighborhood. As a special use permit, I'm sure this looks familiar tonight, there are 6 criteria that we look at, and staff finds that the proposed use is in harmony with the comprehensive plan as a commercial property, and with Richmond Road being a commercial corridor, the comprehensive plan does recommend that businesses that can attract tourists be located within this area, and the applicant has shared that they do expect tourism to be a big driver of their customer base. The zoning district itself is in harmony with the proposed use. This is zoned B2, and as a business use, this matches nicely with the intent of the zoning district. And it's also the case that this will not impair the character of the adjacent properties. There's ample parking. The site was previously used as the Yankee Candle building, and there are some restaurants nearby, and it's expected they will benefit from some increased vehicular traffic once this use goes into place. This proposal, no concerns were raised by staff at the city during the review, and our anticipation is that it is adequately served by essential public services. There's no proposed demolition of any significant features that are on site. And then finally, this proposal will need to be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board, and so that has not occurred yet, but we do have this on the schedule for the upcoming ARB meeting. And we do recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed SUP, but we ask that you include in your motion that the ARB consider the design elevations prior to the City Council hearing this case. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I believe the applicant is tonight perfect as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wysong. Questions? Ms. Liebel, do you have questions for Mr. Wysong?
I do not. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone here?
Why does this need a special use permit?
So this use within the zoning district requires a special use permit, and the previous special use permit that was approved by City Council for a similar use was different enough that they needed to come in and apply for a new one. The short answer, I don't know if that answers your question, but the short answer is...
Doesn't answer my question.
Okay.
Like, is there something specific about this use that's special?
I can try to answer
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
So this use is considered a family entertainment facility. And prior to the applicant actually requesting about 2 years ago a family entertainment facility, there's no use like that in our ordinance. The zoning ordinance did not have a use for family entertainment. And because of that, there was a request for a text amendment for this particular zoning district. That text amendment was approved, recommended approval by the Planning Commission, and then approved by City Council, I believe it was 2022. And that was for specifically Uptown Alley, and that was for 2200 Richmond Road. Uptown Alley is no longer going to be coming to the city, and instead it will be Slick City Action Park. And as Mr. Wysong said, that is different from Uptown Alley. The text amendment is in place, and it says that these type of facilities have to go through a SUP process, and so that's why Slick City Action Park is here for a specific special use for 2200 Richmond Road.
Thank you, I understand now.
Yeah, my understanding is we put that in the zoning ordinance, so it gives staff the opportunity to set conditions if it seems like there need to be conditions set.
Understood.
That's my understanding. Okay. Other questions, Mr. Wysong?
In the packet, there's a 25-013 application.
Oh, I believe that is because when this was initially submitted, the applicant believed they would need to do a zoning text amendment, and then it was determined that actually this fits under the existing use that was already approved. So that may just be a leftover reference.
All right.
Okay, other questions? I'll go ahead and open the public forum with the applicant. Applicant here, if you'd like to speak, please do.
I appreciate you guys, being patient with us as we try to get this property reopened. I know it's been 2 years since we tried to get it through as Uptown Alley. Unfortunately, it was a very expensive modification to this building. And we went a whole bunch of different paths trying to partner with other businesses in the community, and unfortunately, that just didn't work out. I'm excited to get this thing going, and we can actually move pretty quick once we do get approval and City Hall approval on this to get this thing moving. But it's going to be an exciting concept for Williamsburg. It takes advantage of the features of this building, which once we gut out the old Yankee Candle interior, from floor to ceiling, it has 37-foot ceiling height. So this is actually going to be probably the nicest indoor slide park, I think, in the country, because there's none of them out there that can find a building that has this type of interior that allows you with this type of ceiling heights to put these slides in. So we're really excited, want to get it moving forward, and appreciate you guys if you would support it.
Okay, thank you. And if you could just state your name and your
My name is
affiliation
Stephen Moore,
for the
and I'm
record.
one of the owners of Uptown Alley.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to address the commission on this particular application? I see Ms. Griffin heading for the podium and sitting back down. Okay. All right, I don't see anyone else coming forward, so I'll close the public forum and ask, are there comments from the commissioners? Ms. Liebel, comments? Not required?
Not at all. Thank you.
Okay. I think this is a good use, and I'm glad to see it moving forward. I was watching some of the video of the Slick City, and it looks like a very good use for this and a good addition to the city. So I will ask, is there a motion to recommend approval of PCR 25-012 on the with the condition, including the condition that it goes to the ARB before it goes to City Council.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That is all of our agenda items for today. I probably should have said this under matters of special privilege, but today is Mr. Lambert's last meeting joining us, I believe. We want to thank you for all of your excellent advice that you've given us during your time with the condition, and we wish you well in your next adventure. Anything else that we need to discuss today? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.